it's Jonathan, and today Mark Brown and I are following up our episode from last week, talking about the TV special that he grew up with, his childhood version of The Wind in the Willows, The Adventures of Toad from 1996. But like we said last week, talking about The Adventures of Mole, these two TV specials were eventually repurposed, repackaged, recut, and most egregiously recast for an American audience as The Wind in the Willows the movie. And while my initial impression of the specials that Mark and I have been talking about is that they were kind of cheap bargain bin material, I have to say the recut movie made them look like almost masterpieces. But we'll save all that for last. For now, we'll start things off by talking about the best of all of these specials, The Adventures of Toad, starring Hugh Laurie.
It's the power of the story carries on and on and on and on and on.
Okay, moving on to The Adventures of Toad.
The best of the three. The one that I have is nostalgia for.
Well, I've in more ways than one, because
Mhm.
did you feel like the animation was better in this one? I felt it looked different and like it was slightly upgraded.
Well, I know Mole's Christmas definitely had the worst animation, but I felt Mole and Toad had the same level of animation. I could be wrong.
I felt like Mole's Christmas was the worst, and then The Adventures of Mole was a significant upgrade, and then The Adventures of Toad was like a mild upgrade.
No, it could be, yeah.
Like, especially if you look at Badger, which actually I would say Badger's the only one who looks like a downgrade to me because he's blue, kind of. Like he has a blue tint to him, which looked
Mhm.
weird. I don't know.
But yeah, this definitely has the best animation, like for TV quality.
Hmm. But yeah, this picks up in chapter 6 after where Mole's Christmas would have ended. And it plays out pretty close to the book, very abridged again,
Mhm.
but it starts with Toad with his car and then them all showing up to stage their intervention, locking him in his room, taking turns guarding him, and he hatches his escape plan and tricks Rat into getting him a doctor and a lawyer because he thinks he's dying.
Yeah, Hugh Laurie performs Toad so great
Yeah.
with the drama.
Yes, he's my favorite voice in all of
Mm.
these. I loved Hugh Laurie as Toad.
He's really good. I still like Richard Pryor's as Rat and Paul Editing as Badger the best because I feel they fit the characters really almost 100%.
Hmm.
But everyone was good in this voice.
Hmm. And of course, he escapes and steals a car. This all, it feels like I'm going through this very fast, but I feel like the movie or special went through it very fast because I feel like other versions spent a lot more time with this intervention and him planning his escape and then going out and stealing a car. I feel like this one really breezed through it pretty quick.
I guess because it was only half an hour they had and they wanted to fit in everything that happens from
Well, it was 50 minutes. Like both of the specials were 50 minutes.
50 even, sorry, yeah.
But even though it was abridged, I feel like they got the important stuff in. I liked that they kept the good parts of the dialogue in the courtroom scene, especially the line about cheeking the police. Yeah, that one cracks me up.
Hmm. Toad is just like one of the best literary characters, I think. Like he's just written so well.
Yeah. He's one of those people that I say I would hate him in real life, but I love him as a character.
Yeah. He's like someone you don't want to be friends with personally, but like you'd not admire, but like you'd like want to know about from afar.
Yeah. Yeah, I love him as a character.
Like a Kardashian, but more tolerable.
Infinitely more tolerable.
Yes.
Of course, he ends up sentenced to 20 years in jail. And I feel like this special seems to gloss over how long he was in prison. Like he didn't actually spend his whole 20 years there.
Yeah.
But I mean, like with this special, they skip the Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which is the Pan chapter, which I'm not sure exactly how long that takes. But at some point, the book mentions that he's been in there for weeks. So he does spend a decent time in prison, but this seems like not much time passes at all.
Yeah, it's almost instantaneously when he meets the jailer's daughter.
Yeah. Like in the book, I think he almost becomes depressed and he stops eating and he's kind of wasting away. And the jailer's daughter comes in because she loves animals and she's worried about how thin he's getting. And she basically makes it her mission to get him eating again, cheer him up. And it takes a little while in the book, but it's very almost instantaneous in this special.
Like, I personally have memories of when I was watching this movie, and especially at that scene. I guess one time I had watched this while eating breakfast and eating like a good piece of toast. So every time I see this scene, like the memory of toast comes back in my head, and it's just like it triggers this like sensory thing in me. It's
That
like a nice, enjoyable piece of toast.
the toast is like one of the iconic things. I mean, it is from the book, but like for me, watching the other version from
Yeah,
1995, the scene of him with the toast, the way he's eating the toast, and there's like butter flying all over the
yeah,
place.
yeah.
The toast is it's an important part of the story.
I guess that could also be a reason why it's stuck in my mind.
But yeah, this version it cuts everything down. It gets to her planning his escape pretty quickly. I did like that they kept like a little line in there where he starts to think that she has a thing for him. Like she's
Yeah.
doing this because she loves animals,
Hmm.
but Toad thinks that maybe she has a thing for him, but he regrets that there's too big of a social gap for them between them for it to work.
I know a lot of people ship them too in the fandom, so that definitely exists.
That line should not surprise me. A lot of people ship them, and there's a fandom for everything.
Yes, so it's not unheard of.
But yeah, she has this plan to bring in her aunt.
Who's the washerwoman for the jail? Yeah,
Yes, give him her clothes so he can escape disguised as the washerwoman while she gets tied up and is left in the cell for somebody to find later.
which works.
And then this is all pretty abridged, but it stays pretty close to what it needs to be, pretty true to the story. I especially liked the line where he's trying to convince the engine driver to give him a ride,
Yeah,
and he says he has a bunch of kids at home, and they'll be playing with matches and upsetting lamps.
you wouldn't want that, would you?
And then I also liked when the police are catching up to them on the train, the engine driver talks about he doesn't like being ordered about by police in his own engine, and that's why he agrees to help Toad.
Yeah, the only reason he agrees to help him escape the cops is he's just anti-police or anti-establishment or something. That's really it.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I think he throws Toad off into the pond when they come across a bend.
They go through the tunnel and
Yeah. Oh, the
rolls
tunnel.
down
Okay.
the hill to escape before the police see that he's off the train.
Oh, was there no pond in this version?
There
Yeah, I got that mixed up.
might have been, I don't remember. I, it's been a few days since I watched this, and I've seen a bunch of versions, so some of
Yeah,
them kind of get scrambled in my head. I don't remember which ones he ends up in a lake.
yeah, it's been like a month since I've seen this one, so yeah.
I mean, he ends up wet multiple times
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this version, so
Hmm.
maybe this is one of the times.
And sometime along this journey, he sings one of the songs from the book, which is The Incredible Mr. Toad. And I always
Hmm.
find it interesting to see, like you mentioned before, and when we were talking about the Adventures of Mole, like how different people adapt this song with different
Hmm.
music. Because I know like this movie has its own version of that song, and then I know like the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, the Monty Python version that has its own version of the song, which is a total different tune. And it's like I just find that interesting.
Yeah, that this is the other song that it's always interesting to see how it differs.
Yeah.
I again, because I grew up with the 95 version, the tune from that one is the one that's in my head. Like that song is from the 95 version in my head, even though it's from the book.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a song from the 95 version because I've seen that version so many times, especially the way he goes, bang goes the drum. The trumpets all tooting. But then we also get another scene in here that I feel like they've added to this version, like the Christmas special, because you have Toad going off on his adventures, and we go back to Rat and Mole. And this is where they cut out another chapter. This is where Rat meets a sea rat and longs for adventure.
Okay, okay.
But instead of doing that, they have this scene, which is brief, but it's still something that they made up for this movie, with Rat and Mole watching Toad Hall, and they are being watched by two weasels who are plotting to take over Toad Hall.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
Which, I mean, the weasels do take over Toad Hall,
Hmm.
but there's never a scene where you are with the weasels as they make up this plot. You
Correct.
find
Yeah.
out about them taking over Toad Hall
After,
later
yeah. Hmm.
once Toad is home and it's revealed. You don't actually get any.
You know what this
Yeah,
is. No.
yeah. So then we're back with Toad as he's traveling home, and we get the scene with the barge
The
woman.
barge.
And I was kind of surprised at how close they played it to the book because I almost thought that they might skip part of this because this all played out very close to the book, where right down to stealing her horse from her,
Yeah.
leaving her stranded, and taking him and selling him for 5 shillings and some stew.
That's Toad for you.
Again, I love him as a character. I would hate him if he was real. He's kind
Steal.
of awful.
Yes, steal your horse.
And then, of course, we get the scene where he comes back to the people whose car he's stolen and ends up tricking them into basically
Oh,
hijacking their
yeah,
car.
let him drive it. Yeah.
And then he drives them into a lake and escapes. And he eventually makes his way back home, and Rat fills him in on what's happened at Toad Hall. And then there's a scene that is from the book, but it is not one that I had seen adapted in any other version until this one. So I thought when I first watched this, because I hadn't gotten to this point in the book when I first
Hmm.
watched this version, where Toad tries to go back home and is repeatedly thwarted by the Wild Wooders.
Oh, okay.
And once I got to that point, I was like, they made this up. So I went to the
Yeah.
book, and they didn't. And I had to laugh because in the book, the first scene is described as Toad being met by a ferret with a gun. And the phrasing just cracked me up. A ferret with
Bird
a
with a
gun.
gun. Wow. That's an image. Is the scene where Mole dresses up as a seller woman or something and goes to Toad
He
Hall to
goes
get
in as the washerwoman.
yeah,
Yeah,
is watch
that's
is
from the
that from the
book.
book? Okay.
Yeah, that's in other versions too. Yeah, he's thwarted trying to take it back himself. So he goes back to Rats. Badger shows up and they make a plan to go back and get Toad Hall back. Of course, including the detail of Badger knowing about the secret passage from Toad's
Yeah.
father that
Like
he never told Toad about.
exactly. This was always been the Deus Ex Machina, the just kind of a thing with me. It's like, by the way, there's this secret passage. I know about it. You don't, but your father told me about it and told me never to tell you unless something like this ever happened.
Toad's father knew that Toad was kind of a screw up.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. He was a wise father. Like, don't tell him whatever you do. He does not need to know this.
And then, like you said, there's a scene with Mole going back in disguise to tell the Wild Wooders that there's an army coming that are basically planning to wipe the floor with them.
I never understood why he would do this because I feel that that would make them more alert and prepared.
I kind of agree with you. I'm kind of on
Yeah.
Toad's side here. Toad thinks this is a terrible idea, but Badger thinks it is a good idea. I suppose they're presuming that this is going to make them on edge, and
Oh, okay.
they're plant the way Mold described this, there's like an army coming. So
Yeah.
since they're sneaking in by the back door, basically underneath the floor,
Mhm.
I guess they think that they can trick them into thinking that there are more people than there are. And I guess that's what happens. It works. So
Yeah.
I still kind of agree with Toad thinking that this is a
Yeah.
terrible idea to tell them this.
Yeah, like I could understand like for him pretending to be the washerwoman to get like information about okay, which
Hmm.
exits are being guarded, how many are in there, something like that. But I didn't really get, oh, by the way, we're a whole army's coming to, kick you guys out.
Uh-huh.
But like I said, there's merit in, just getting them on edge
Hmm.
and watching the doors and stuff, right? As opposed to, being prepared for a sneak attack.
Hmm. But yeah, I mean, the idea works because they're easily defeated. And I feel
Mhm.
like it's more easy in this version than other versions I've seen because the battle does not last long at all. They basically go in, fight a couple minutes, and that's it. They're defeated.
A badger, a rat, a mole, and a toad against like 30 weasels, ferrets, and stuffs.
I mean, I could see a badger taking on a bunch of those creatures. I don't know how well a water rat, a toad, and a mole would do, but a badger could probably hold its own.
So it's mostly the badger who, holding this fort. But the thing is, this badger is old too. So like, how strong is he?
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it works.
But yeah, they defeat them and then they plan a banquet because apparently that's etiquette.
Yes, yes, for some reason, yes.
And then apparently some of the stoats and weasels come back to say that they're sorry and they were put
Yeah,
up to it by the chief weasel.
is that in the book?
Oh, I think so, but let me check.
Because I don't think I ever heard that before until this one. And we actually don't see them come in and apologize, and we just hear Mole telling us, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, well, I take it back.
They were very penitent, and they said they were extremely sorry for what they had done, but it was all the fault of the chief weasel and the stoats, and if they could ever do anything for us at any time to make up, we only have to mention it.
And that just drops my whole opinion of this last chapter of the book. But oh well, I guess that's etiquette too.
I guess that probably helps explain why it was so easy to defeat them, because a bunch of them weren't actually really all in on it. They were basically just being used.
Guess that makes sense.
So yeah, they plan this banquet, and Toad wants to do all of these grand speeches and songs, but they shut him down and make him promise to be humble. And he seems like he's actually sorry. He's actually crying and seems penitent. And then they actually do include his last little song from the book where he sings to himself since he's not allowed to sing to an audience.
Mm.
And then he goes out to the party and you see the horrifying hedgehogs again. And then they have a few little, I don't know, postscripts, scenes showing the various people that Toad had wronged during his
Yeah,
escape.
he sent them all letters and like remuneration, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And they don't make it clear in this version, but in the book, they basically had to force him to send something to the barge woman. He had zero intention of sending her anything. Even
Much
though she was the one he wronged the most, he did not want to pay her for the horse.
stole the horse, sold the horse.
And then it ends with the scene, which is from the book, with a mother weasel telling her child about the
The
fierce
great
badger
misbeacon.
and the
Yeah.
toad and rat and mole and using them as threats for good behavior.
Does does the book have anything about Mr. Toad getting into airplanes after this, or is that just from certain adaptations?
I don't think so. I think that is something that was added. Was it in the Disney version? I wonder if that's where
The,
it
the Disney version had
came
anything.
from. Because as far as I remember, Toad is actually genuinely reformed by the end. I don't think he gets into a new
New
mania.
Mania. Mm, okay.
And there are sequels to The Wind of the Willows, but they were not written by Kenneth Graham.
Hmm.
So it is possible that the airplane detail came from one of the sequels. Actually, no, it did because they made one of the sequels into a sequel to the one I grew up with, which I didn't see until this year when I started doing this for the podcast.
Hmm.
So it was the same art style and cast as the one I grew up with, but it was the sequel, which was not written by Kenneth Graham, and Toad has an airplane in the sequel. So that is probably where that idea came from.
The Willows in Winter. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is based on the novel from 1993 by William Harwood. Okay. Okay, yeah, this might be it.
Yeah, that's where this one ends. Plus a very 90s sounding closing credit song.
Yes, this was the one that I would watch a lot from the library growing up. I haven't like before, I hadn't seen it in like many, many years, but a lot of my nostalgia came back and a lot of the memories as a kid. And yeah, this one definitely is between the three. This one definitely hands down is the best.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If anyone disagrees, I really want to hear your your reason.
If anyone disagrees, it is probably because of nostalgia. Because when I was looking for a copy of Mole's Christmas, I saw people talking about it and they loved it. So
I guess
nostalgia rules everything, I guess.
good old nostalgia. It's like, have you seen Inside Out 2 yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, when nostalgia comes out, you're like, go back in. It's not time yet. It's too early.
I love that that was June Squibb. I love her
Yeah, yeah.
voice. I need to see her new movie. Our theater has not gotten it.
Thelma, yeah.
I
And
have
look,
not seen it anywhere. I really want to see that.
I think this is her first starring role in a film, so like it's nice that she got it at age what 94 or whatever she is.
She's up there.
Yeah,
If she's not 94, she's close.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that trailer and I was like, I need to see this. Plus, I think Rachel had talked about it. Like, I think she saw it at a film festival.
Oh, okay,
I hope it comes to our theater, but if not, it might be one that I buy sight unseen because I have a feeling I'm gonna love it.
nice.
It just seems like exactly my kind of movie. A little old lady getting revenge on someone who has scammed her.
Scammers, yeah. It looks interesting. I think I want to check it out too.
Well, moving on to The Wind in the Willows, the movie that they made out of these two specials.
Yeah, I didn't even know this existed until you sent it to me.
I I didn't either. Not that I knew the others existed, but I knew the two specials existed a few years ago because we had talked about doing them for I don't know if we had talked about doing them for a Wind in the Willow series or if it was something that I'd thought about for iHeart Animation back when it was just
Yeah, I don't remember.
short reviews. But we've talked about doing these for ages.
Yeah, this has
And
been on our list for a long time. Yeah.
yeah, I just knew about the two specials. I did not know that there was a movie. And as soon as I started reading about the movie, I thought this is not going to be very good, especially when I saw that they had recast everyone.
Hmm.
And I could not find this movie anywhere. I had to buy this on eBay so that I could watch it. Like that should have given me a clue that this was not worth watching. But I'm a completionist. I had to see it. I had to spend $15 to own this thing. I
Oh,
wish I
Jonathan.
I wish it included the actual specials on the DVD.
Yeah. This basically is just a edited version of Mole and Toad with a new cast. And I could have sworn there was a little bit of Mole's Christmas in it, but if you said there wasn't, I believe you.
I don't think there was because of the way they edited it. I mean, I'll go through what the changes were, but the way they edited it,
Mhm.
there's unless it was somewhere else in the movie that it didn't belong, it
Mhm.
couldn't have been in because at the point in which it happens in the book, they cut out the chunk.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. But just in terms of like first impressions when I watched this, I thought the cast was awful. They did not sound like they were giving anything close to a good performance. It was like they were reading a script. Like there was no emotion in anything. Like it was like why I cannot figure out why they had to recast it. Like what's the difference between a UK audience and an American audience that the American audience has to have American voices? I like what's wrong with the UK version?
Yeah, unless there's like a reason, an issue of like not rights, but like maybe the actors need more money if it's cut for an American version or something. I don't know.
I suppose.
But yeah, for me, the voices were kind of it's what I expected. So like I wasn't as turned off by it as you. I actually thought it could have been a lot worse than it we got. But if you told me there was like a knockoff American edit of a British Wind in the Willows, this is kind of exactly what the voices I was expecting to be are. So it didn't I guess my expectations helped that it didn't bother me as much as it's definitely not praiseworthy. I'll say that again. It's not praiseworthy, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard worse stuffs.
Maybe it's because I was surprised by the quality of the voices in the
Yeah.
specials. Because, like, I went into the specials thinking they were going to be awful.
Okay.
And since they were not awful, like, I didn't love them, but they were, watchable, and the
Mhm.
voices were such a huge part of that. I think that's probably what made me think this was such a huge, terrible downgrade.
You could probably argue the voices were the best parts
They
of the
were.
special. Yeah.
They were definitely the best
Hmm.
parts.
I think the guy who voiced the Toad in this version, I think this was his first film, if I'm not mistaken.
I
I
should
forget.
actually look up the cast. Like I copied down the names, but I don't actually know who's in it because
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't care enough to look them up.
I looked it up when I saw it, and I think if I remember, I think this was like his first movie he did or something. He was like a comedian or something. I forget his name. You'll correct me.
Well, the guy for Ratty, his credits go back years, decades. He's got hundreds and hundreds of credits.
Is he Alan
So
Oppenheimer?
Michael Bell,
Michael Bell. Okay, yeah. I know he's a big voiceover guy.
Mole is Steve Boulin, and he has 96 credits. Let's see how far back he goes. His first credits are from the 70s and 80s, but I'm wondering if that's because they're all English dubs of animes.
He-
So maybe he didn't start with those. Well, there's Pound Puppies in here from the 80s too. So this wasn't his very first.
Okay, that's Toad.
No, that was Mole.
Oh, okay,
Toad is Phil Snyder. He only has 13 credits, and this was his first one.
okay.
If you would have asked me, I would have told you that Mole was the worst one. I'm
Wilson.
I'm
Sorry.
honestly surprised that he has such a long credits history.
Well, maybe the actor is good. Maybe it's just the voice he chose for this role.
It could be. Also, he just kind of felt like he was phoning it in, so maybe they didn't pay him very much and he didn't care.
Yeah. But Phil Snyder is actually he has a Wikipedia page. I'm looking at him. He's a university professor now, but he also was the voice of he started to voice Germany cricket for Disney in May 2010, starting with the Kingdom Hearts series.
Hmm.
I think he did better with that than Mr. Toad.
Badger is William Dennis Hunt. He has 49 credits going back to the 70s. Well, it really starts in the 90s.
Looks like he died in 2020.
Yeah, anyways, the cast did not impress me, but I suppose it probably was me being biased by such a downgrade from Hugh Laurie.
So like where did this get released? Because we know this didn't go to theaters. So did this version appear on cable TV somewhere, or did this go direct to video?
I think it was a direct-to-video thing.
Direct to video. Okay.
Again, there's like almost no behind the scenes stuff that I could find for either the specials or the movie. I don't think there was any special features. I think it was just the movie. So there was not really a lot that I can tell you about where this came from.
I think you and I are the only ones who've seen this,
It maybe,
at least in the past 20 years.
maybe. Yeah, it's this one is so obscure that it was really hard to find a copy to
Mhm.
watch. Like I said, I had to buy it, and I'm annoyed that I own this. I would much rather own the specials, but they weren't included on the DVD,
You're a glutton for punishment, Jonathan.
apparently. Yeah, this movie starts with the same song that The Adventures of Toad ended with,
Mhm.
which I guess is fine because the music that they used for The Adventures of Mole was uh, not good. The one that The Adventures of Toad ended with was probably the best of all of the music that they had. It wasn't amazing, but it was the only one that I can now think of the tune in my head and actually remember what it sounded like.
Yeah, I can't even remember that, but I think I remember it being eh, better than the others.
Yeah. For the most part, I think the story is relatively the same, but they've
Mhm.
altered some of the dialogue a bit.
Yeah, for like American dub, I guess.
They cut out scenes here and there that
Yeah.
sometimes it seemed random as to what they would cut out. Like both of the specials together, like each one is 50 minutes. So it's really only an hour and 40 minutes if they had cut the whole thing into a movie. I don't feel like that's too long. But even if you want it to be a straight 90-minute movie, you could cut out 10 minutes relatively easy. They cut out like a full half hour of stuff, which seems weird. Like they cut out some things that made sense, but other things like the toll road rabbit guard guy, they cut that out. That's actually from the book. I
Mhm.
feel like They could have left that in. The boat trip and picnic scene all seemed mostly the same. They cut out the montage of Mole swimming with the musical number as well as the Ducks Ditty song,
Mhm.
which I guess that's fine.
Yeah.
The mole swimming scene wasn't even from the book, so get rid of that. They go straight from that into the trip with Toad, and there's a lot of altered dialogue, and I don't know how much it like as I was watching it, I was just annoyed. So maybe it was just the delivery. I feel like some of the dialogue definitely was changed because like the scene with the horse is now mad that the cart has replaced him as the big thing around here, which is a weird line. It's like, why did they change that line?
I think when I watched this, I kind of wasn't paying so much attention to it. So I didn't notice all the like the exact changes like dialogue wise.
I'm sure there's stuff that I missed. The
Hmm.
things that I noticed mostly had to do with lines that I had taken notice of the
Before.
first time I
Mhm.
watched, like lines that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
Like the horse one, I don't think I would have noticed, except I wrote down the original line
Yeah.
because I was surprised that they actually included the horse talking because they don't always do that.
And this American adaptation, this was the same year, correct? This is still 95. Or was
I
this
th-
done the years after?
I don't know what the timeline is. Like I wish I knew
Yeah.
more about the behind the scenes, so I don't know exactly the timeline as to when this was made
Why?
in and how long after the specials were made that they made this.
We need to find, like I said, we need to find someone who worked on these films and interview them. We'll get so much from that.
After the road trip scene, it's mostly the same for a while. Of course, you've got the car scene, Toad getting obsessed, and then Mole going out in search of Badger by himself. And then at this point, like the scene in the woods, especially when Mole trips over the door scraper, I started feeling like I was watching a bad anime dub. Just because like the lines of course aren't always matching the mouth movements, but also I
Yeah.
was noticing little bits of dialogue that was changed just enough that I noticed it.
Hmm.
And then I was like, yeah, this whole thing just feels like a bad anime dub.
I mean, but you're probably not wrong.
And then after they get to Badgers, they have the scene talking about taking Toad in hand. And then they completely cut out the rest of the adventures of Mole, which I'm not upset about because it spared us from having to see the hedgehog abominations again.
I think what they put in of Adventures of Mole, I think was good enough.
Yeah. It makes sense they would want to include more of the adventures of Toad because
Yeah.
between the two, it is the better one.
And I think it's what more people are familiar with the story.
Maybe so, yeah. But also, this is where they would have, or if they should have included part of Mole's Christmas if they were going to, because this is where it would go in. But instead, we skip straight from them going to bed at Badger's house to
Mhm.
springtime with Toad working on a new motor car and Badger visiting Rat and Mole to talk about doing an intervention on Toad.
Okay. I think I got mixed up with the scene of Mole tripping over the mat, and I thought that was from Mole's Christmas.
No, because Mole's Christmas was them leaving Badger's
Leaving the
house.
yeah.
Yeah, that's where that one began. So I don't think there was any of Mole's Christmas included in this. I thought there was going to be, but then when I saw that it was only an hour and 11 minutes, I was like, oh no, there's definitely no way they can fit any of that in there. They can't even fit the whole two main specials in this.
Well, no one's complaining about Mole's Christmas being not
No,
being there.
yeah. And then I think most of the scenes with them doing the intervention is the same, but altered dialogue. And the most notable was that Toad asks for a priest instead of a lawyer, which I thought was a weird change to make.
Yes, because he's dying and for
I
final
guess I
rights,
guess he's
maybe.
Catholic.
Yeah, yeah, Catholic.
Toad is Catholic.
Needs the final rights to. There you have it. It's canon now. He's not
This
Church of England. He's Catholic.
this Toad doesn't need to write a will. He needs a
Yeah.
priest.
I don't even know who Toad would leave. If he wrote a will, I don't even know who Toad would leave it to.
I mean, he'd probably leave it to his friends. Like he's annoyed by them trying to take him in hand and make a gentleman out of him, but I think he still loves his friends. So I think they would get everything if he died.
Toad, Toad's a character.
He is. He definitely is.
Yeah.
But at this point on, I feel like most of it is the same up until we get to him being arrested because they changed the dialogue in the courtroom scene, even taking out my favorite line where he was cheeking the police.
Oh,
It's like, why did you change this?
I think
This makes no sense.
Americans won't know what that means.
Who cares?
There you go. Who cares?
Let them be confused.
Let them be confused. I want my line.
And then him in jail is mostly the same. I think some of the dialogue is a little different, but mostly the same. Same with the escaping scenes. The biggest change next comes with the barge woman, because for a while I was like, okay, this is all the same. Right up until she ejects him from the boat, because they completely cut out the scene where he steals the horse. Like, are they trying to make him a more redeemable character? Because if that's the case, he steals a car in the next scene.
But that's a car, you see.
I,
In America, we're good at with car stealing. It's part of the history.
I mean, stealing horses is also part of our history.
Well, that's a little too far back.
uh, Total tangent, but I found out recently there's a cemetery up the road from us, like a little country cemetery
Yeah.
called Cuppy's Grove. I found out it was named after a horse thief.
Oh,
Apparently, somewhere, I don't know where this is, but an old family friend, like he's a pretty old guy, was talking about a horse thief stealing horses, and there's like a cave around here somewhere that he was hiding horses in. Like I had never heard of this before.
this sounds like Hole's level of lore right now.
You never know what kind of weird stuff happened in the history of your area.
That is true. You got to check out the cemetery now.
I mean, my grandpa's buried there. I've been there a bunch of
Oh,
times.
okay.
So, yeah, I'm familiar with the
You
cemetery. I
just didn't
just
know it
was
was a
not
horse
familiar.
thief.
I just was not familiar with that it was named after a horse thief.
I guess that's a legacy for you.
I guess so. But yeah, they completely cut out the scene where he steals the horse. They cut straight to him getting picked up by the couple in the car he'd already stolen, and then hijacking their car. And then the rest of this plays out again, mostly the same, right up until he gets home. It's filled in by Rat. And then they cut out the ferret with the gun.
It's just like all your favorite stuff is just being cut out. The ferret with the gun, the cheeking the police, the I don't know. It's everything you like about this is, I mean, this wasn't meant for you.
I guess so. Not that I would have liked this any better because there's so much else wrong with it, but it's kind of hilarious to me that they kept cutting out things that I notably liked.
Mm,
And then after this, I really thought that they were going to cut out Mole as a washerwoman because that seems like a scene that could easily
yeah,
get cut for time, but they didn't. They included it.
yeah, that's surprising.
And then after that, the whole planning and battle scene all seems to be mostly the same up until they're planning the party afterwards and they cut out Toad's last little song.
Did it have any songs in this besides the first one? Did
I
this
don't think
have the?
so.
Yeah, I don't think this had the Incredible Mr. Toad song, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think they just kept the 90s sounding song because
Mm,
well, they took it from the credits of The Adventures of
Toad,
Toad to put at the
Toad.
beginning, but then they also play it again at the end of this movie.
Hmm.
And that's mostly the end, except for one more change, because they do have the scene with the repayments to all the people that he wronged.
Hmm.
But they changed the barge woman's line. She says, money for the horse. So they've
Oh,
changed it
okay,
to
yeah,
money for the clothes because
oh,
he'd
yeah, because the
ripped some
clothes.
clothes while he was pretending to be a washerwoman.
That is a really strange choice of just deleting the horse. I guess it would just have to be for time, and that's the only thing I could think of
I suppose,
deleting the
but this is
scene.
so short. Like you could have had it and not like what how long was the scene with him stealing the horse and then selling it to the guy in the field? Like 5 minutes at most.
Okay.
This this movie is only an hour and 10 minutes.
If you're listening to this and you worked on this movie, get in touch with us. We have questions.
And that's basically the end. It does have the scene with the mother weasel and her
Hmm.
child with different voices, but yeah, that's the end.
So, like, if given, I know the answer already, but if given the choice between watching The Adventures of Mole and The Adventure of Toad back to back, or watching this, which one would you choose?
The originals.
Yeah, me too.
They should have just cut those two into a movie themselves. That would have been a perfectly respectable movie.
Yeah,
It had a great cast, a cast that really elevated the material that they had to work with.
you
Because,
like,
well, as you can see with what happened with the movie, the cast
like,
is what made this. The animation didn't make this, it was the cast.
pretty much. Like I said, I feel it's probably a royalties thing, maybe with the original cast.
I suppose. But it was made so close to the original that it feels like it shouldn't have been a problem. But I don't know the laws between the UK and the US and if a direct to video movie between or two television specials. I suppose there probably was some sort of payments issue. I don't know.
It's a very niche law.
Probably. But yeah, these are pretty hard to find. But if you're interested, watch the original two specials. Don't even bother with the movie.
You could skip most Christmas too.
Yeah, I guess that is the original. I don't know why they started with Mole's Christmas, but you can
I
skip
mean,
that. And then
yeah, I would. You could even skip The Adventures of Mole if you had to.
if you had to,
Mhm.
I would say watch them both because it's a complete story, but it
Yeah.
you don't technically need to. And The Adventures
Hmm.
of Toad is the better of the two. I mean, I'm biased. I would say if you want to watch the story, watch the other movie from 95.
I gotta see this now.
It's my favorite.
Hmm.
But if you do want to watch this, the original Adventures of Mole, Adventures of Toad, or even just The Adventures of Toad, that's the way to go. Hugh Laurie is great as Toad. He makes that worth watching.
There you have it.
Well, I guess that will be the end of this episode. I feel like we talked a lot more about this than I was expecting, but
Yeah, me too. I thought that it would be really quick, but no, you had good notes.
I had opinions.
You had things to say. Seeking the police and the Fred with the gun. We'll never forget that. It's like a hashtag, don't forget, and then a picture of the Fred with the gun. Will go viral after this.
Well, until the next episode, I think you'll be back for something in the future. We've got a few things planned. So until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. It's always fun to be on this. So you can check out my blogs at the Animation Commendation at theanimationcommendation.com. I have a lot of animated film reviews, top 13 lists, and I host a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Animation Edition game show on that. And I have a second blog, the My Live Action Disney Project at myliveactiondisneyproject.com, where I'm trying to watch and review every single theatrically released animated Disney film, live action Disney film ever made. So follow me there. Thanks.
Okay, well, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.